Welcome to Good Horses, Stories of the American Quarter Horse. I'm Jim Jennings.
And I'm Bobby Loran. We're excited to bring you the stories of the horses that have made a lasting impact on some of the most legendary figures in the quarter horse industry. Each episode, we'll hear about the horses that challenged them, taught them, and left a special mark on their lives.
From remarkable lessons to unforgettable rides, these are the stories that celebrate the heart, soul, and horsepower of the American Quarter Horse.
This podcast is brought to you by the American Quarter Horse Association. Let's get started.
In this episode, we visit with Jason Martin and Charlie Cole of Highpoint Performance Horses. But before we begin, we want to note that since this recording, Bob Avila has sadly passed away. We honor his memory and contributions as we share this episode with you. Charlie and Jason together have 69 world championships on horses that they've shown, and of course, countless others on their clients, and we're going to talk about some of those horses today. Charlie, Jason, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having us. We're excited
for being here.
We're going to talk about the easiest thing for us to talk about, and that's our horses.
That's good, because that's what we want to talk about. It is. To start off, guys, kind of give us an idea of the beginning. Your business partners, how did that happen, and how did you get where you are today?
You go first.
I started off kind of a unique story as a city kid. My mom sat next to a lady in church whose grandson took riding lessons. So she set me up for riding lessons in the Pony Club, United States Pony Club. So that was my foundation is Pony Club horses. I had a friend who showed 4-H, and I kind of got into the Western part of it a little bit. And then when we started showing, I started the Jason Martin Riding Academy and gave some local lessons. And what's interesting is the reason Charlie and I started having a business together is because it was the first year that they had split combined shows. And so my business was based mainly on English horses, and Charlie had more of a Western background of horses with a few English horses. So we started stabling next to each other, and I would help his English people, and I would send my Western people with him. And that's basically how the whole thing started, because we started helping each other at the shows.
Now, in the beginning, as I remember, you lived in California.
Correct.
And then you're in Texas. How did you get here?
Oh, we started Highpoint, I think, in 92 out in California in Chino Hills. And so we had a really thriving business out there with a pretty local clientele, or up all over California, I guess, but local. And then progressively, we started getting clients that were more and more from around the country. So we were traveling further and further out. We were actually starting our year in Tampa, Florida, and we'd end up in Syracuse, New York in October, and then do the Congress and the World Show. But our clients started being more from around the country. So we finally realized that it would be easiest and best to move centrally, so we weren't driving across the whole country just to get to a lot of the shows, and we were closer to the major shows. So that's how we ended up here in 2000.
I see. So Charlie, how did you get started in horse showing?
I grew up as a city kid also from Orange County, California. I loved animals, especially reptiles, my whole life, but my sister was the one. She's a couple years older than me. She decided she wanted a horse, so my family moved to a place in Orange County where you could have a horse. And she started going to the 4-H shows and the little local shows, and worked her way up into like the Buckskin Association. I would go to the shows, but I was out catching lizards and snakes. That was my thing. But I ended up going to a camp that we went to also that was all horse and rodeo related. And I fell in love with the horses eventually.
Yeah.
And so that's where I ended up going to boarding school. And then one of my trainers was actually from here in Pilot Point, Texas, and I came and spent some summers out here. And then I actually quit school at 16, and I took a different route than Jason. I just started working for the trainers, the best trainers I could find. So I lived here for a year all over California, and showed my final year of youth, which is when Jason and I met, and then started my business like at I think 19 or 20. And then that's what, like he was saying, that's when we started stalling next to each other, because I was growing my business, he was growing his. We both had a passion and love for the all around.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did everything back then. And so that's how we ended up merging together and putting our businesses together.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, a little bit of history.
Yeah. So tell us about the horses that got y'all started.
You can start with the start.
Well,
Hard question.
The first horse that really got me started with AQHA, his name was Okie Bobby Joe. I was probably, it was 1987. So I was just out of high school, took a year off, and I had a hunter jumper trainer that I worked with named Riley Wilson. And he had an old retired horse that one of his old clients had, and I bought him for $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
He happened to be a quarter horse. So I got him fit up. I paid $200 a month to buy him, and went to my first world championship in 1988 in the open jumping, and I was world champion.
Oh, wow.
So
The first one.
First time I went in the ring at the world show, I won. Yeah. So it was, I had a little collection jar at the local feed store, and I got donations to help me get there, and so I kind of started on the poorest of the poor path, but kind of do it yourself. But he definitely was the horse that got my foot in the door.
Yeah, that's incredible. We all have those humble beginnings, and look where you are now. Wow. Okay, your turn.
Well, I feel like he left a little bit out there because actually Jason's first horse that he really showed AQHA that I know of, well, I guess there was a halter horse, but we met in November of 86. And I was working for a horse trainer out there in California that was going to give me a horse to show for my last year of youth. And so we worked it all out. The guy was an amazing trainer and coach. And he got me this horse. I rode it for 1 month, and I did not like this horse. It was not my deal. And so this other trainer, he's like, oh, this other trainer is going to come and bring her youth kid, and they're going to try the horse. And that was Jason. And he actually bought the horse that I was completely out on, and then he showed it and did really well on it all year. And thankfully I got another horse, and that's how I learned to do the trail in Western riding on this other horse. But and then he got Okie Bobby Joe, right?
Yeah.
So, but it was impressive that the horse that I was out on, he was in on, which is actually why our whole career is based off. We always could bounce off each other. Like if it didn't fit me, it fit him. So that actually is how it all started, and it worked so well that way.
That's incredible. That's good.
Yeah, I was buying that horse regardless if we liked it or not. I didn't have a horse, and my mom actually took a loan out for me to get this horse that I didn't try yet, and so it was coming home with us.
Yeah.
No matter if I liked it or not.
It's like you're going to make this work.
That's exactly right.
Did you know Charlie's opinion of the horse?
No, I didn't know Charlie back then.
Oh, okay.
We started showing against each other, and I actually beat him at the Golden Grand for the all-around on that horse.
Yeah. True statement. But thankfully, the horse that I got instead was a horse that actually is the horse that taught me the trail in Western riding. Because as a youth, I did show as a 14-year-old. I went to the youth world in the Western Pleasure on my mom's pleasure horse, and I loved Western Pleasure, and I thought that was it. And I placed in the top 10. And then I didn't show again until my 18-year-old year, my last year of youth. And that year was when I started working for Tim Whitney, who provided me with my first trail and Western riding horses I ever showed. So a horse named Jaguar's Replicas and another horse named Lucky Diamondell are the two horses that I learned to do trail and Western riding on. And they were two of the best trail horses to this day that I've ridden. So I learned to ride on those horses, but I only did the Western. I never did the English. But those horses really helped direct me and realize, oh, this is really what I love, the Western Pleasure, but the Western Riding Trail, that's when it was just starting to get big, and then it exploded.
Wow.
After that.
Wow, that is so neat. So those horses that are more of a challenge, like you said, you were just sold out on this horse. You're like, no, not this one. How do you deal with those ones that are more of a challenge? What's your approach as a team, I suppose? Yeah.
Well, we always, through our whole training program, and I don't even think we really realized how well we did it, but his strengths are typically my weaknesses and vice versa. So when we would get a young horse, we would typically share them. And if, I would ride them, he would ride them, and then we would kind of figure out how they both fit us. And some fit just him, some fit me. And a lot of times he'd show the junior trail, I showed the junior Western riding. All the events we would go back and forth on. And it worked so well for so many years because it was like a balance and check system. If I wasn't getting along with it, I'd be like, you got to ride so-and-so for this week or this month or take it over. Wow. And we've done that for years and years. So Typically, if it didn't fit one or the other of us, it needed to find a new event because we'd been through all the events.
Yes.
So, we would usually find a spot or figure out what a horse was really interested in doing or good at doing.
Yeah. True dynamic duo.
In the beginning now, when you first got to Texas, first got to Pilot Point, I'm assuming you were just showing your own horses. You didn't have clients in the beginning, did you? Or did you?
So we didn't move to Texas until 2000, and we started our Highpoint performance horses in 92. So we had quite a successful clientele by the time we moved to Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We had California was, we go to horse show every weekend. We had a lot of really good clients that time, we didn't have expensive horses, but we had horses that we just made do, and we taught to do trail. And I think we were successful because we were young and hungry, and we would just do the hours of work to teach, this pleasure driving horse that, of today's standards probably wouldn't be, but, we taught it how to drive, we taught it how to jump, we taught it how to do trail and Western riding. And so at the beginning, we took a lot of average horses, I think, and made them pretty good just because of the hours and the drive that we had.
We were lucky too because California, was where trail, there was the open circuit out there, and trail in California was so ahead of the rest of the country, and actually so was Western riding. So the courses we were showing on, the first year I showed trail, I showed on Tim Kamira courses. And so we were showing on those courses way before the rest of the country ever got to show on his courses. Matter of fact, I think in 94, or 94 might have been the first year of Tim's, or maybe 95. But matter of fact, it was 95 because that was the first year I won the junior. But we were showing on those courses for years. So we would come out here and show these shows, and our trail horses were far and above the rest. Not just ours, I'm talking about California in general.
Right.
They were, most of your top 10 at the world show was California horses. So it really helped us get horses from across the country because people wanted to ride with the California horses or the California trainers. So we got Zippo LTD because the owners of him wanted to come ride and show in California to get the trail that much better. So we were very fortunate that we were ahead of the game on those events.
Okay. Bobby, let's talk about some of those early horses, and then just kind of come forward. What were some of the good horses in the beginning, guys, that you?
The first good horse that I got was really bad-minded. His name was Dunit So Sore, and you couldn't get him out of a stall. He had bitten numerous people. And it's funny because I had another horse named Petite Raven that I traded for Dunit So Sore. And so I was excited because Dunit So Sore had been a reserve, I think, world champion youth trail horse or something. And so I had already done the deal. I was driving home. I called Charlie. I said, I just bought this horse. And he goes, that's a terrible horse. And he's like, I hate that horse.
Well, in my defense, it had bit my friends. I knew the owners well. I knew several of the owners. So
anyway, it kind of burst my bubble, but that's all I had. And I didn't know that he was a Western rider, or I knew how to change leads. I thought I was teaching him how to do it. And so he was the first horse that I really became successful on. And he had a little bit of success before I had him, but in the Western riding, he was one I won the Highpoint the Nation on. I won my first senior world championship on him. And he was the one that really kind of probably started it all for me in the Western riding. He was really bad-minded, but he was a really good West trainer. He was halter bred, wasn't he, back then?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But he was a really good horse when you're on his back.
Yeah.
And we taught each other, and he taught me a lot.
So how did you deal with his little personality quirks of wanting to nibble?
We had carrots,
Oh.
and we would tempt him, like, please come to the door.
I was thinking about him the other night. Like, I don't think we've had a horse since like him. He was so hateful in his stall, but we assumed no one ever did what we did. We finally just got a giant bag of carrots, and you would just beg him to come out of his stall with a carrot. That's how you got him in and out of the stall. I've never had a horse since then like that.
Yeah.
And even on him, he bucked, he kicked, he bit. But on the flip side, he won the 11 under trail. Didn't she win the 11 under trail? Or 13 under Western Ride at the Congress? Like,
Yeah.
He was a little kid's horse.
Wow.
That we put this whole family on. And he was like a tank, like a sturdy tank. But I was thinking about the other day, like what a terrible horse he was, but then what a phenomenal horse he was.
And I think in a lot of programs he wouldn't have worked because they would have hated him and they would have sent him on, but that's all we had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and back then, you know, we made things work, and we just put a lot of time in him. And yeah, he was my first really big win on a horse.
Was he like that with a kid on him? Or did he change personalities?
You had to really kind of watch his quirks, but he wasn't dangerous like when you were leading him. Like he didn't bite when you're leading him or anything. His problem was in the stall and blanketing and so forth. But he was definitely quirky.
Yeah,
but you could kind of peak him for the right times and put a kid on him, and she could get through a class. And the mom also showed him.
Yeah, I mean, he
went on all the kids, walk, jog, did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like quite the horse. Memorable one for sure.
All right, Charlie, what was your first like that? Or
I don't know.
Not like that.
I don't know. I think I was so lucky to work and get to show those original trail Western riding horses. But when I went on my own, I was lucky that a girl named Heather Smith came with me with a horse named Nita Maid, and he was as versatile of a horse as you could ever want. And so she allowed me to show him in the trail in the Western riding. I went to my first world show ever, open world show. I went to the Youth World twice, but in 1990. And I went with Heather there, me and this, I can't remember if I had one other horse or not. I think I had a senior horse that year, but no, it was just him. Went there with her and got a show in the senior trail. I can remember being in the senior trail finals and my feet were shaking so bad I was looking at my feet in the backup like, stop shaking. And they would just shake. But that was the first horse I ever placed on at the world show in the trail, senior trail. And we were looking at pictures the other day, and the obstacles were it was like I was holding a pole, doing a lope circle while you held a pole. It was so different then. But that horse actually taught me more Western riding, more trail. But he also, that year, she won the horsemanship. She won the equitation. She was reserve in the working hunter, reserve in the, what was she reserve in? She was won 2 classes, reserve in 2 classes, placed in the showmanship. Like he did everything. And, I was so lucky to have a horse like that to come to my first world show. And she won the all-around that year.
Wow.
So my very first world show, that horse really kind of helped put me on the map. And she was such a great owner to give me that opportunity and to work with her. So I would say he was one of the very first ones that really made a big difference and taught me a lot.
Why Western riding? I mean, already all we've talked about is Western riding. And between the two of you, you've held the senior Western riding record at the World Show for 18 consecutive years. Why did you focus on Western riding?
I don't know. I mean,
I think there's so much meat to the Western riding. Like I love Western pleasure, but I also like the maneuvers of it all. So I don't really know. That's what he had on the buckskin. It's what I had in training with several Western riding trail horses. We seemed to just work together well on it. I don't know if one day we were just like, here, let's try this. We just kind of just did it together. And then we were like, let's make more. So every junior horse we got, we were like, let's teach you to change leads. And that was just what we did.
Really, Western riding was just starting to come into its own back then. They didn't, when we started, they still had a gate, when you started. And they also didn't have a scoring system.
Right.
So, or a penalty system. So really the Western riding since the early 90s really progressed into what it is today. And we were kind of at the beginning of that. And I think that's also was a challenge, is trying to move the bar higher with each horse. And I think California, a lot of people did the Western riding, and we learned from a lot of we learned this from one trainer and that from one trainer. And we kind of melted our own style. And we were lucky because we had a lot of great customers, and we had a lot of great youth horses. And so we had a lot to choose from, and a lot of nice horses to ride and keep trying to make their Western riding better. So it's also a challenge for us, I think.
Yeah. We were always each other's pair of eyes. So we would try to I think we focused so much on how to make this lead change bigger and better. And I'd be like, hey, watch this. And then he would be like, oh, it looks like this or that. But we just kept pushing to make that change better. And then we were fortunate enough to eventually get even better quality horses that we put that same change on.
And we kind of were in the time when Western pleasure horses didn't do Western riding because you were going to mess them up. And I remember even some of the older Western riding people who were successful at the time said, we should never practice the pattern. We're like, we practice it every day. so it was just a style change. And, our idea was, their philosophy was you don't want the horse to learn to cheat. Ours was we want the lead change to be just like a gear, like you jog, you lope, you change leads, and they're just so used to it that they don't cheat because it's just a part of their everyday activity. But it was really definitely a changing of the guards as far as the philosophy behind how to train a Western rider.
Wow.
That's good. That's good. All right. What about changing leads? And, did you show any reining horses?
No, not until later on. But we did at the beginning. We also got a Cat Mosby Award, Oscar, and he was one of our first real all-around horses. And we taught him to change leads. And we showed him in the trail, the Congress and the World Show, and did the hunter hack, the working hunter, the driving, hunter in saddle, trail, Western riding.
Wow.
He was one of the
Yeah,
he was one
we
of the
just
ones.
taught him everything. He's 17 hand horse. And we're like, well, you're going to do trail. You're gonna do right.
We got grief over it though, because he was a hunter and saddle horse,
Yep.
and that's what they did, and you're going to ruin him. And we never heard what they were saying or never listened. We just were like, no, this is what we do over here.
Yeah.
And we just started doing the other stuff. And of course, his hunt seat career ended up being illustrious, but then ended up being a world champion driving horse, jumping horse. He won his first trail class. Jason ever showed him, and he placed at the Congress in Western riding. Like, we never listened to the naysayers. We just did what we thought worked for us, worked for the horse, and kept the horses happy. And so he was a great example of it. Like, he probably taught us the most about like, just do what we do and then let the product speak for itself. And that's what Oscar did. He showed everyone that, oh, these two kids can do this, and they don't really care what everyone says.
Right. And Oscar, he holds the record for the amount of Superhorse titles won. What does that mean to y'all to be a part of that staple in AQHA history?
Well, Oscar he's definitely the horse that put us on the map for sure. He just was the happiest horse.
Oh.
He never said no. He could have had, like, the first year Charlie showed him in the driving, it was all age driving. So there's also, if he would have been like 2 years later, he probably would have had a few more world championships and a few more super horses to his title. But he was just that horse that he never said no. And he had presence, and you would think you get to Congress like, he's not moving very good, and maybe he's not going to do it. And all of a sudden you'd trot in that pin and his ears would go forward and he would carry out another trophy. So, and he just died last year at 33. So we literally had him for 30 years at our house. And he's definitely, for me, the horse that I feel put us on the map as a team. And because he was also, at that time, probably the most expensive show horse ever bought. And so there was a lot of pressure on us, and we took that pressure and made him a great horse. And we just have a lot of admiration for what he did for us and what the Knox family did for us, for allowing us, these two young kids to achieve so much on them.
Well, the Knox family had basically tasked us with finding their 13-year-old daughter a hunter saddle horse, which we obviously, Jason had been showing under saddle, and we had several of those, but we decided to go out and find the best one we could find. And that's what they actually told us. Go find the one that you think's the best. And I can remember walking into the arena at the 1993 Youth World in Fort Worth and looking in the arena and seeing this bay horse go by. And it was the most, for me, like, I remember seeing it as being like the most eye-captivating, expressive, beautiful horse I'd seen in the show pen. I literally went crazy when I saw him. And so for me, it was just his ring presence that was crazy good. So we tried to buy him there. We tried him out there. Fortunately, Karen Orowski at the time was a really good friend. She was the one who was training with Rick Skelly. They were married at the time. And we tried to buy him, but we couldn't get it accomplished there. And I was a little hesitant because, to be honest, I had got a horse from Rick Skelly a year or two before that I had no luck getting along with or fitting to our program. So I was very hesitant of, can I follow that program? Can I do this? So we didn't buy him at the Youth World. Then we went to the Congress. We tried out every famous hunter and saddle horse there was. 5 of them?
Probably.
Every big name one. And they were really good. Loved everything about them, but we couldn't stop. We saw Oscar again. And so we were like, no, we're going to buy Oscar. So we go up there to watch Oscar's show in the 3-year-old hunter and saddle. And he trots in, stops and rears. And then we were like, nope, we're not buying Oscar. And then he goes on to win the 3-year-old hunter saddle and the youth hunter saddle. But there was no way we were buying a horse that stops and rears. So now we go on to the World Show. And here comes Oscar. We try out some more horses. And he comes in. He wins all 5 cards unanimously on a saddle. We didn't buy him. So we get home from the World Show, and I think Jason was the one who talked to the dad. And the dad was like, "You got to find a horse. We got to have a horse by Christmas."
By Christmas.
So,
No pressure.
I said, I guess I should tell the whole story. So then I fly to Wisconsin because I'd never been to Oscar yet. Just Chelsea rode him at the Youth World in August. I go there by myself. We agree on a price. We agree on everything. I go there. I stay there. I was too scared to ride Oscar in front of Rick, but I was go there to ride, and that was my job. But I couldn't do it. They didn't even offer me to ride him. So we set up a vet appointment. I look at him. I pet him. They refused to use the vet I set up. We'd use their vet. They refused to take his shoes off. Everything could not have went worse. It was a terrible experience, other than we bought Oscar.
Finally.
And there's so much more, but Oscar was there on Christmas Day. And it was literally, at that time, the best purchase we could have ever done because he changed our lives. But it took us 4 or 5 months to finally pull the trigger and do it.
And when he got to our house, we took his tail out, and it was like the size of your pinky, and it was all fake. It was that back then when they tied the hairs, and we're like, oh my God, he has no tail. But it was either that year or the next year that AQHA allowed fake tails, because I am not sure he would have had the career he would have had without a tail. But it was just funny, all these situations. I just remember going, Charlie, he has no tail.
No tail, no
but
foot.
We put a big red ribbon on him, and he was there for her 13th Christmas.
Yeah. A lot of times with Jason, we set goals, but like we don't even realize what we're working towards. But Oscar was like, we knew once we got that first couple months with him, like, oh, we want to win the Superhorse. Like that was the highlight of any trainer's career. And so we set out to do that. And, the first year went well, but we didn't win it. And then we came back and won it 3 more times. But I think for us, winning it the first time was kind of when we were like, okay, we can do this. And we set this goal out. And, thanks to Oscar, he did it multiple times for us. But like Jason said, he gave us so much, and that horse would do anything. If it didn't, and he loved Jason and I. Like he didn't like to be cross-tied. Like most people couldn't cross-tie him. If we cross-tie him, he was like, all right, I'm good. He was just a funny horse that way, but he loved his people, and not just Jason. There was other people he for sure loved, but yeah, he really taught us a lot and gave us a lot. Right?
Yep.
Seems like he had one of those 1 in a million personalities.
For sure.
You said people criticized you for, he was a hunter under saddle or, horse, and then you took him in all these other events. What about the owners, the Knoxes? Were they worried about you?
We were lucky that they lived by us, I think, because they trusted us. But the first year, I think they got a lot of people whispering in their ear that you're going to ruin this horse, and I think they were nervous because they just spent a lot of money, and all eyes were on them, and other people kind of wanted to poach them a little bit, and they stuck by us, and they had great kids, and it was a great family, and they just believed in us, and the girls would come and ride and practice, and they never once said, no, maybe you shouldn't be jumping him. But even though I think people were whispering in their ear, you're going to hurt that horse. Not us. We were out doing trail and Western riding and teaching him to drive and jump. And I mean, he did everything. He was such a great horse.
They stood by us.
Yeah.
All of them, really truly, all of our clients, and when we were starting out, were so good to us and trust us with their kids and their horses and their animals. And they were all, like you said, they all lived close to us. They were checking on us a lot, but they were so good to us. So we were very fortunate to have that.
So let's talk about another special horse, Harley D Zip. Man, this one is so iconic.
Harley was funny because one of my favorite customers we ever had was Harriet Yakutan, and she was from Orange County. She lived by us, and she had a horse named the Yellow Page originally, and it was my first world championship on the Yellow Page, a little Palomino halter horse that was a terrible mover, and of today's standards would not be winning much, but that was my first world championship in the Western, was with her horse. And when we decided to upgrade, she moved to Canada for a couple of years and she came back and she really wanted to upgrade. So we looked at a horse named Harley and we sent our friend Chris Thompson out to try him because he was back east. And we purchased him, and he was really quite rotten as a junior horse. He would buck. He was not the nicest horse or easiest to be around, but Harriet started showing him, and like the first time she showed, she won at all the judges. The next show, she got second at all the judges. And I remember we were in Oregon, and he just stuck his head up in the air and went all the way around the arena. We're like, well, he's never going to show for her again. And so then we sold him to the Pines.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then we sold him to Joetta Meredith, who also did a really good job helping get over that hump for the kind of the all-around events. But as a junior horse, he was really tough. He would buck. He would clear the arenas out. Carl Yamber used to help me at the shows. I'd go, can you please go buck Harley out because I'm kind of scared of him. And he'd get on him and get him to stop bucking, and then I would ride him. But as a 5-year-old, it all came together. We were in Syracuse, New York. And as I was just getting over the hump, I was in Romel's and I was getting over the hump, and I took him to the Congress, and I won the Congress in the Western Riding. And then I won the World Show in the Western Riding. And from then on, it's like he just got over the hump, and the Pappendick's bought him a couple years later.
Yeah.
But it's like as soon as he figured it out, he was unstoppable. But trying to get him to be on the same page as me, that, this is what we're going to do and we're going to both be happy. He had another opinion, but literally he was for me, my one Western riding horse that I just knew I'd have a good ride, and I think I was in 2 or 3 runoffs with Leonard Berryhill at the World Show. And I loved it because I knew that I could have another ride exactly how I did, because him and I were he never cheated in the Western riding. He never cheated over the pole. I knew I could lay it all out there. And really, of all the horses I've ever shown in the Western riding, he was the one that fit me the best. And I just had no thought process that I couldn't lay out a good run on him. And so I think that's also why we won so much, because we both had so much confidence that we could do it. And so he was, and he was one of the first horses that really threw his foot out there and got that big lead change. And I would remember people going, how does he do that? His foot's so far out there. And it was just, it's kind of his style and my style, and I think my dressage background, and it just all came together. And he was the horse that really put me on the map as being a successful Western riding horse, I think.
You won 7 world championships, Tony.
I did. Well,
Wow.
he was really a great horse.
And of course, he ended up in the Hall of Fame.
He did.
Yes.
Yeah. He, our dream was always, we had, everybody has a dream, and one of our things was to be on the journal, and he was on the journal for us. And one was to get a horse in the Hall of Fame. We got that. And one was to get a Breyer horse, and he's a Breyer horse.
Yeah.
So he checked a lot of boxes for us that were just, I think every trainer's goal, in life would be.
That's good.
I think Charlie rode him once or twice too.
Yeah, just a few times.
Did he have a favorite?
Oh, for sure. Him and Jason were a team. But I rode Harley a lot. I actually showed him a lot in the pleasure, a fair amount in the trail, and some in the Western riding. But what I loved about Harley is if you prepared him and did your job, you knew no matter what class you're going to, he was going to give you 100%, and he showed 100%. He was really fun that way. But he for sure was quirky, and if you pushed his buttons too far, he would tell you, like, no, we're not going to do that. We had some great experiences. I helped the horsemanship the most probably back then. And both daughters had shown him. Christina showed him for years, and then Allie took over showing him. And we were at, I think it was the Redbud. We were in Oklahoma City one year, and we were practicing fast circles with Allie. And Harley, like I said, if you asked him and showed him what you want to do, he was great about it. But if you picked on him and just kept picking, he would be over it. And we were practicing fast circles one time, and I'm like, I think you should ease up a little bit. Like, he's mad at you, and he's going to get madder if you keep doing that, because she kept getting after him. And she didn't listen. And she was a really talented rider. Both kids were. And she pushed his button one more time, and he just launched her right out of the saddle, right in the dirt.
In a red outfit.
In a red outfit. Red hat, red everything. And she was mad, but I think I just laughed and Harley just stopped and looked at her, and I go, you were warned. You know your horse. Like I told you. But he was a great horse. I don't know if there's, he just had this look and this movement and this change. He was.
And then at the Select World.
Oh yeah, he did to her too.
Carrie, because they all showed him. He's the only horse that's ever won the junior, the senior, the amateur, and the youth and the select in the same class. And so Carrie, the mom, would show him, and she basically would get on and just kind of go get ready for the class and go, but she'd always qualify for World Show. And Harley would not tolerate miscues. Like, it would irritate him. Like, your timing's off, lady. And so she was practicing the night before, and I'm like, Carrie, you're not going to get very many more chances. Sure enough, comes across, and she kicked him at the wrong time and bucked her right off, right in the middle of the arena. And the next day, she's world champion. So he just was that horse. Like, I'll get you through tomorrow, but you pressed the wrong buttons today.
Yes, Harley had a standard.
Yeah, he really did. That. Yeah, and
he
then
knew his job.
at the World Show one year, they had when the Laney rode him. What was that?
Oh gosh, we did the trainer challenge there, where the different trainers from different disciplines switched. So Laney DeBoer, the hunter rider, showed him in the Western riding.
And we have a great picture of him over her ears, or her over his ears, because he tried to buck her off in the class. And so it was just kind of a joke. Not anybody could ride Harley, and you had to press the right buttons. And if you did, you won. But if you didn't, you didn't. So.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby picked that one. How about Vital Signs Are Good, another Hall of Fame horse now?
Well, Vital Signs Are Good for me. She was always my competition against Harley. So when it came opportunity for her to be bought, the Morans jumped on it, and she was everything that we had hoped she would be, and she was a great horse. But with getting her came a lot of pressure, to try to figure out and try to do her justice from her previous trainers of how well they've done and her previous owners. So I didn't enjoy showing her as much, because I always felt a lot of pressure when I did. She was a great horse. And for 3 or 4 years, her and Harley would switch back and forth to the World Show. And I'm not a very good pleasure rider, so I also showed her at the Congress, and I won the maturity, and I would be stressed the whole time. So I didn't have a lot of it was a different ride than I had on Harley. With her, I was always stressed and I was nervous. But Charlie won a lot on her in the pleasure.
Well, I probably got her in her easiest class and her hardest class, because I got to show her in the pleasure, and she was just a dream pleasure horse to show. I love showing the pleasure. I won the Congress multiple times. I didn't ever win the world. I won the prelims, but I was reserve honor in the senior pleasure. But I also got to show her in the trail. And I would say she was a very average trail horse, but she was beautiful at it. So the trail was always a bit of a struggle. I don't know if I think I made the finals one year at the World Show on her, and she maybe fell down in the box, but she was so slow-legged and so dramatic in her movement and almost too calm about, she wasn't the most careful either, but she was beautiful at the trail. So I got the easiest class and I probably got the hardest class, but we were, when you rode her, it was like you were riding around on royalty. People came to the stalls to see her. People came to the arena to see her. Wherever you went, people wanted to see her. And she had this happy-go-lucky, kind personality. She was perfect to be an ambassador for the quarter horse and show horses because she loved people. And, we were so lucky that Moran's owned her, and we all got to enjoy her and get to be a part of history showing her because she really was royalty in our industry.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes, she was the third all-time leading money earner in the Western All-Around. I mean, that is quite the feat with vital signs. So tell us about how you prepared this horse for competition, because you said you were competing in her worst class and her best class. I mean, that's kind of hard to juggle.
Oh, I mean, it's kind of what we do. We would both share her. So if we were at a show, usually it depended on kind of the schedule, but if, you would a regular show, we'd basically get out, and he'd practice a lot of Western riding on her. I practiced a lot of trail on her. Pleasure wasn't something you had to practice too much other than, 20 minutes before you show, because it was that easy. I mean, she was very well trained from the people who, Kristen Gallion and the people that had her before us, Leonard. So he was always focusing on his Western riding, getting it where he wanted it. And I was trying to get the trail to where I had it figured out. But, she wasn't a high energy horse, but she could be, she would be a little distracted or not the most focused horse. So you had to just say, hey, this is what we're doing now, and let's focus on this. And she just had such great expression. But part of that was just, she was like, hey, look at this. And, so mostly we just focused on each event when it was time for that event.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Charlie, what about Hot Ones Only?
Hot Ones Only. Well, he was a great horse. And, the moment he was born right over here, and I remember the morning we saw him, the moment I looked at him, I don't know if you've had the same feeling, but you could tell he was a great horse. I mean, he just had this look and presence as a baby. So he was born, and then, we raised him here, and then Beth and her group started him, and his whole early 2-year-old year, we watched him ridden and progress. And honestly, he looked like a pretty average horse. None of us really, we were all like, oh, no, he's a little this, he's a little that, but he was huge, and he was beautiful, and he was great-minded, but his movement was average to good, yeah, and a little quick. And so we all didn't know what we had. We went to the Congress, and we were like, well, I guess she's going to show him. And that horse came trotting in the pen, and we were all like, whoa. Like, you knew that when he trotted in there, he changed. Like, everything got bigger and floatier, and he trotted great. He cantered great. He looked amazing. And so he won. I think then we all knew, like, oh, the hunter saddle is thing. And that same Congress, I think he won the Masters first. And then Charnay went and showed him in the amateur hunter saddle as a 2-year-old, and he won. And so I actually wasn't riding much at that time, but later at the end of that year, so I guess it was in his 3-year-old year. I showed him as a 3-year-old. At the end of his 2-year-old year, I started breaking him to drive. And basically, I teach all my own driving horses 1 week, and he was in the cart. And I think I showed him as a 3-year-old in Tampa, and I've never done that with any other horse. And in the driving, you couldn't find an easier, more enjoyable horse to drive. And I don't know that he won I won 3 world championships in a row on him in the driving and Congress championships. He was just, loved it. He was a great-minded horse, and he still is. He's still here, but Bruno was just a talented horse, but there was something extra when he went in the ring that he knew it was showtime, and he was a show horse.
Yeah, when you braided him and put his tail in, it just, everything transformed. Like it all came together.
I love that. He knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
He was a performer. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that you touched on, Charlie, that I thought was just so interesting, you said that the moment he was born, you knew that he was going to be a good horse, and y'all have so much experience across numerous disciplines. What is that one key factor or characteristic that you know that that horse is going to be a good one?
Oh, wow. Well, usually we don't really know until they're 2 or 3, but I think there's like a couple things that go into play. I mean, we do show horses, and they're judged. And so they have to have a look, and they need to be pretty, or they need to be super expressive to where they're just really looking like they love their job. Ultimately, you want a horse like Oscar or Harley that they're great movers, they're pretty, and they have great expression. That's what really sells and wins in the show horse world. So I can't usually tell that as a baby. You can kind of tell colors and legs and that they're going to be flashy. But until you start riding them, it is hard to tell. And the truth is, many of them, until they trot, walk, lope in the show pen, that's when you're like, oh, wow, this is special. So I think quality of movement has a lot to do with it. Look has a lot to do with it. And then, of course, you need a horse that wants to perform. And there's some horses that make you work for it. We had a horse named Conclusive Bar Cody that was this giant all-around horse that won the Undersaddle at the Congress and the world multiple times, but he also did the horsemanship, the Western riding. But if you didn't do your job and you didn't prepare him, you were not even going to make it around the ring. And so there's some horses like that you have to work extra hard for, but they'll give it to you. And then you have horses like an Oscar that, it's minimal work and loves his job and gets the task. There's definitely several of our horses that just understood, oh, all I got to do is walk in that arena, go around and do this, and then you feed me treats. Like I have one right now that his name's Jasper. My dad's the best. Like that horse gets the task. I ride him 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, and he's like, gotcha. And then I give him a cookie and I put him in a stall. And same thing at the show pen. Like he's the same way. Like he understands like, oh, I get fed treats. If I just do this is easy. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of horses, you think, gosh, I mean, we do the same thing over and over. Why don't you get it? I mean, if you just do this, you don't have to be lunged. You don't have to, do all the other stuff. And I would say the smartest horse we ever had that got it was Zippo LTD.
Oh yeah.
Was who?
Zippo LTD.
Okay.
And we got him, the Farleys had him, Andrea Farley, who's now Andrea Kale. And he was, literally, it was a joke. It was like he was a machine. And he never had to lunge him. We never had to hardly need practice. The one year she went to the Congress, she was late for the pleasure. And so she trots all the way in, wins the pleasure. But that year she won the showmanship, the horsemanship, the trail, the Western riding, the Western pleasure, the senior Western riding, the senior trail, and open all around and the youth all around. But he was a machine. Before the Western riding, we'd go like, okay, on the horn, we'd joke and we'd go, pattern 3, and he would just do it. So some horses, especially as they get older, they just figure it out. My life is super duper easy if I just go in there and perform, and I get put back in my stall and get the treats. And he was probably the smartest horse, in my opinion, for that.
Yeah. It's funny how some some take extra work, but they do finally, like Harley is a good example. I mean, like took a lot of work, but at the end, he just knew like, oh, all I got to do is this, I'll do that. And so that's ultimately what you want. Not every horse gets to that point, but I think the smarter ones do.
Yeah. And it's also learning, like with Harley, the first day of the show, I never changed leads on him because it just wasn't worth it. He had to go through his, he had to go get a ride under his belt. He had to get a lunge under his belt. And if I decided to start schooling on him the first day, he would fight me back a little bit. But if I, so that's also us as trainers learning a horse's personality and just like, what, it's not even worth thinking about schooling on him until day 3.
Yeah.
And then he's perfect. But, a lot of people might not have gotten that. So it's also us learning, the horse's personalities and what they need to also come to the table.
Well, I have one of those right now that I have this amazing gray mare, Snap It, Send It, and she's amazing. But it took me about 6 to 8 months to figure out, like, there's no point me really doing much the first day at a horse show because she's just distracted and kind of an airhead. And, so now we just get her ridden down for a couple of days, and then I can start doing my stuff on her. But you definitely need to learn. You got to learn the horses and know their personalities.
You mentioned a while ago the one that you give the cookie, the treat to, and everything. Do you use that in a lot of your training? Reward them like that?
Most of our horses are pretty spoiled. They don't get it like the moment I get off, but once they're in their stalls, or if I come through the we always have a bucket of horse treats at our stalls, and our horses are very spoiled. But I don't know if it's a reward system for, like, oh, you did the Western Riding Good, here's a cookie. But I don't know. They usually that's kind of how it works out. They get back to the stall like, oh, you were so good, here's a cookie. But I don't know if they correlated that. But I know when most of my horses see me coming, they get real excited. And they're almost to the point of obnoxious that they want cookies so bad. But I don't know. I like them. They're spoiled. So
good.
That's awesome.
All right. What about He's a Radical Zip?
He's a Radical Zip is one of the sweetest, kindest. I mean, here we keep saying that, but it just shows, like, those great horses. He loves his job. His ears are always forward. We tried to buy him every show for a few years, and Jim and Deanna would always laugh at us. And we were at Del Mar.
Oh yeah,
Del Mar, the Sun and Surf circuit, and we were kind of in the same alleyway, and I walked by and I go, "Is he for sale?" And she goes, "You might." And I literally stopped in my tracks. And I called Bonnie and go, "If they sell this horse, you're going to buy him right now." And I thought they're joking. And Deanna goes, "You can try him out tonight." And I mean, we wanted to get that horse paid for before they backed out. But he was one of those horses, just kind of like Vital Signs. He had already won a lot before I had him, so I can't really take any credit in his training or why he's successful. We were just so fortunate that the Searles and Susie Johns really allowed us, to have him in our barn. But he's special. He's that one horse that I think he wins so much because he's politically correct, meaning he's not overbridled. His head's a little above level. His ears are forward. He always looks like he's having a great time. So a majority of judges all like him. They like his style. He has a great lead change, super good mover and good cadence, and he's a pretty horse. So that's kind of also what you're hoping for, is that when you have a horse that he crosses the line on a lot of opinions of judges, that they're like, it's hard not to like him, because some horses have everything, but they're not good with their ears. And there might be one judge that doesn't like a horse that doesn't carry their ears well, or one that's a little overbridled or a little low. But He's a Radical Zip, really. He just floated, and he's loves his job. He's, I don't know, almost, is he 20? Going to be 20. And he packs Bonnie around, and she's won the Congress on him, and she's placed the World Show on him. And he's just one of those very, very special horses that, he'll live here until he dies.
Now, we have to mention that in 2020, he set the Western Riding score, record for high score of a 245.5, I think. So
yeah, he's just that special horse. I mean, again, most of the judges really appreciate what he brings to the table and how pretty he is to do it, and he just really loves his job, and he's just that special of a horse.
Even with his age, like I'm not showing him the open anymore to win. I show him just to tune him up for Bonnie. But if I show, he beats the other senior horses still.
Oh.
Yeah. He's that good still.
Yeah, he could still win the world this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
we mentioned a while ago that between the two of you, you have won the Western Riding consecutively 18 years at the World Show. Are there, and I know we've talked about a lot of those horses, are there any that we've skipped that we should talk about?
Charlie has a couple really special horses, I know.
Well, our streak started back in 2005 with a very special horse named Majestic Scotch, owned by Tammy and Mark Dyer, and Charnay Thompson showed him. And he was just a special horse that had won a lot prior to us getting him. But my dream as a kid had always been to win the Western Pleasure at the World Show. And he was a great pleasure horse. And I thankfully got to win the Senior Pleasure at the World Show twice on him. And just as much fun as you could have showing Western Pleasure horse. I've never really been able to redo that exactly because he was just a blast and I could show 100%. But he was also a great Western riding horse. So for me, the streak started for Jason and I in 2005 with him. I won it. I'm pretty sure Jason was second that year. We were first, second, third many of these years. But he started it. Then Jason won it several years in a row. And then I came back and won it on a black horse that I actually, one of my very favorite horses that I ever showed. And he was quirky. He was tricky. He was a spook, but his name was I'm a Petite Classic. And the Reeve family owned him. And I got him. He'd come through a couple other trainers, but I got him, and I couldn't even change leads the first couple times I rode him. He was just so quirky and weird. I finally got to where I could change leads. I don't think I made it through a Western riding pattern the first whole year I showed him. And then my first World Show and the first Congress, I did not make it through the Western riding pattern. He was just spooky and scared, and but I learned that there was he was legit scared. And so I learned to kind of like, hey, I'm with you, buddy. Instead of like punishing for being scared, I would just pet him. And I pet him for a full year. And thankfully, I just love that horse. I bonded with him. He was a great loper and a great changer. So I won on him in 2013 and actually set the record that year, which was crazy because Jason had set all the records. So I finally got to beat Jason something. Then I think JC came back and won the next year, and I think I was second. And then I came back in 15 and set the record again and won on him again. But that horse was really special to me, and I was very fortunate to build this like 6-7 year relationship with him. But I really adored him, and so he really kept the streak going.
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think Jason probably was second to me both those years, but we just kept going back and forth for a minute there.
All those times that you never even finished the course on him, but you never quit him.
He just had, I really got to understand him and understood that, like in the trail, he spooked even worse, but he was a great trail horse. So if I made it through, I knew I was going to win. And the West Run is the same. So he just had the talent, the ability. It was just all in his head. And I just knew I needed him to know that I was there with him. And if I knew, like, there was certain arenas, like I never did win the Congress on him because he hated the Congress, but I could get through it. And I was like second there. And I think the owner won on him several times, but I just didn't look or address where I knew he was going to spook. And I would just talk to him the whole way through it. And, it took 2 years or so, but he always showed for me. If he was spooking, I just ignored it, and I would just keep going and pretend like he wasn't spooking. So I tend to do well on spooky horses. The first mare I won the trail on at the World Show in 95, that mare spooked at everything. And I mean everything. We had to blindfold her to get her in the arena for him to show her in the Western Riding at the World Show because she was so afraid of going down the chute. And she never looked at the pole when I won on her because she spooked the whole way. But I was just like, nope, this is where we're going. So spooky horses have always kind of fit me well. And that's the I'm a Petite Classic, or Kramer as I know him. I just gave him confidence and let him know I'm there with you and we're going to do this together. It's not that you're on your own and you got, I'm up here and we're going to do it together.
Yeah, and what a testament just to your horsemanship skill and ability to build and foster that confidence that they need. Like, what a special relationship. Is that kind of how you basically approach other horses too? You just kind of gauge where they're at and look for ways that you can foster that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I always say horses are like people. So there's some horses that are fraidy cats and they're scared, and there's some that are bullies. And so you have to learn each horse and figure out what works for them. I tend to do well with those kind of horses that are maybe more challenging because they're, maybe they are more spooky or whatever. And then, between the two of us, we'd always figure out what personality trait fits us the best, or we would, go back and forth on those horses and figure out, who would originally do it. But I think it's more just getting to know each horse and then know yourselves, like what works well for you. Don't you agree?
Yeah, and we bought, I think all of the horses that we were successful the most on, we really bonded with. I mean, we truly, I truly loved Harley, and he's a radical Zip. And, when you're doing really well and you just get a bond, and we never treat horses like a machine. I mean, we realize that they're animals, and I also think you get a lot more of a horse if they love their job and they're happy. And so I think we're very positive trainers with horses, and we do a lot of patting, and we love on them. We talk to them, and it's just worked for us.
What other horses do we need to talk about that made an impression on either of you or both of you?
Well, it took, a lot of different horses to win our streak, and a few of them were just one year horses that won. They're all the horses were pretty special, but right now, the last year I won the world, was on He's Blazing Trouble, and he's an up and coming horse. We got him from Sarah Simons. She won the junior Western riding on at the World Show. And, again, it was one of those things. We were at the Red Bud, and, we're always asking, and they didn't want to sell them. So I threw this crazy number out, and the girl goes, "Yeah, I think we'd take that." And I ran to Bonnie and I go, "Buy this horse right now." And she was hemming and hawing. And anyway, I begged her, and she bought him. And he's just a phenomenal horse. He's does the trail, the Western Ronnie. He wins the halter. And so he's kind of the star, one of the stars of the shows right now that I had, but now that Charlie shows him. And so Charlie will be showing him at the World Show this year, but he's same thing. He's a really happy horse, great expression, and a beautiful lead change. So, but now he's Charlie's.
Yeah. I'm pretty lucky. I've got two great Western riders to show that are very different, but they're very similar. I've got Snap It, Send It, who's this beautiful gray mare who has amazing expression with a giant lead change. And Parker, same thing. Parker's got that beautiful top line expression and lead change. They're very different, but they're both incredibly talented. And I never really felt pressure showing. I just never have. But these two put a little bit of pressure on me. But I appreciate the pressure that I am in the place that I get to have pressure and the opportunity to show such two phenomenal horses this year.
Yeah. So Parker is his barn name. Why did y'all have that name stick?
I think it came with him.
Oh, it came?
Everyone calls him Perfect Parker.
Oh.
Yeah. So those that know him closely. So yeah, he just came with it.
Oh, it's cute. Very nice. Okay, so let's move on to super horses now. Y'all have won 5 super horse titles with 3 incredible horses. So let's talk about these horses. I know we've talked about Oscar. He is, of course, the title holder, but we haven't talked about Moving Artfully yet. So let's start there.
So we got Moving Artfully from actually a friend of ours. We saw him as a yearling, and he was by Artful Move out of one of their mares. And this was in California. What's the name of it?
I knew you were going to ask that. Shelley Boyle?
The Boyce.
Shelley Boyce.
Shelley Boyce.
I'd get there eventually.
Yeah. Anyway, really nice people that lived kind of by us, and then they did a little bit of the breeding. And he was giant. He was like 17.3 as a 2-year-old. And he was just like Gumby. I mean, it's just everything. Big dished head, really pretty. He actually got his mouth caught maybe on something, and he broke some teeth. I mean, he was just like that really goofy 2-year-old, but he had beautiful ring presence. And he was a very, very good jump hunter horse, and really a nice driving horse, and a pretty good hunt seat horse. And so, he just had those events that he could excel in. And so I remember it came down to we were already done showing, and it came down to the very last performance with, I don't know who we were up against, but a cow horse person.
It was Bobby Avila and Shine by the Bay.
Okay.
And I mean, that was like the horse, and Bobby Avila is the man. And so we were like, we didn't think we were winning. We were like, oh, this is so ending right here.
And literally the calf ran out and laid down. And we're
they went to rope it, and I think it was the roping actually.
Yeah, we're like, what just happened? I mean, they couldn't even throw their loop because it just ran out of the box and laid it out. And we're like, we just won the super horse. Yeah. So we weren't expecting that. That was probably, of all the horses, we really tried to win on Oscar, and we really tried to win with Parker, but that was kind of caught us off guard a little bit because we didn't think it was really.
Yeah, and the rules on the Superhorse have changed through the years.
Yeah.
So like we had a mare a year or two before winning on Boonara that won 3 classes at the World Show, and she wasn't even reserve Superhorse. The way it worked out that year, we only had 4 classes on Moving Artfully. Thankfully, one or two of them, but
Yeah.
we didn't really think we were in the running because the rope horses and the cattle had a bit of an advantage. So we were lucky. But the other thing about him is we had him from day one. Like we started him here at Highpoint and put every event on him. Like we did him all ourselves. So it was pretty amazing.
All the way till he retired.
Yeah, he was a quirky, not quirky. He was a goofy horse. You're right. He was goofy but sweet and massive. So we were really. It was a fun horse to win it with, but unexpected for sure.
Yeah. And your most recent Superhorse title was won in 2022 on He's Blazing Trouble.
Yeah.
So what was it like showing him to the Superhorse title?
Well, we knew that he was capable of it because he was a really nice at performance halter. So that's like bonus points. That's like points that you just kind of you're lucky to carry in. And we knew that for the Western riding, he was one of the top Western riding horses. But the trail is so deep in the senior trail. I mean, there's 50 horses that could win the trail. So it's just a matter of everything coming together. And it did, on that day that he was able to win it. But it was a goal of ours. We knew we had the classes that we could win it. It's just a matter of all the stars lined up or not.
Right. So going back to Oscar, he has 3. Did you ever expect that you would win 3 Superhorse titles with him?
I don't know. We definitely set out to do that, but Oscar never disappointed. He always rose to the occasion. So I think, winning 3 was not surprising to either of us because when Oscar walked into the arena, if I was going in, well, the truth is I only showed Oscar 2 times at the World Show in the driving. That was my event with him. Jason did the hack. We usually hired someone to do the undersaddle, and then Jason either did the working hunter or we hired out or used one of our friends that we would use the working hunter. But driving was like my class the first couple of years. And I think the first year I was 3rd, but it was all ages. They didn't have a junior. He was a junior horse. The next year, I think I loped and I was reserve. And then I finally won it the 3rd year. And then I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. That was too stressful. I'm not doing it again. So then I turned him over to Jason in the driving. And how many more times did you win?
4.
4 more times. But
Big deal. Just
So
4.
he shouldn't have given it up.
Yeah,
He's like, I've achieved my goals. Like, I'll take over.
I just need to win it once. But the truth is, you knew when you came in the arena in the driving, the undersaddle, the working hunter, or the hack, he would probably be the winner. That's how good he was at those events. So I don't know how many times Jason won the hack on him. I know he won the undersaddle several times, and the driving he won almost every time he walked in the pen. Like you knew you could win. So winning the Superhorse was just a matter of do your 4 events and see what the rest can do. But he was going to win his classes as long as you did your job. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was as perfectly kind and good-minded as you could ever want a horse to be. He never said no for Jason and I.
And he farted. So
Oh, yeah.
Oscar had a terrible habit of farting over the jumps.
Oh.
And it literally sometimes would be so loud that the crowd would laugh. Or, I was in Syracuse once, I was doing my hunter hack, and he farted over the first jump, farted over the second jump, and both judges were bellied over, and they were thinking, this is not good. I mean, they're not going to let you win a world championship if they're laughing at you. So we had to give him charcoal.
Really?
At all the major shows to keep his gas under control.
Wow.
So there's a little tidbit.
A little fun fact.
A fun fact for Oscar. He had to be charcoaled.
We have so many Oscar stories.
Yeah.
We were going through pictures the other day, and there was a picture of a facility in Wilcox, Arizona that we laid over at. And the picture is just a picture of these barns.
We laid over because we broke down.
Yeah, we broke down. Yeah. We broke down every year we went to the Congress. And they're flooded. The whole area is flooded. And these terrible barns flooded. And it's a picture of it. I don't think it was, could you see the horses' heads in the stalls? I don't know. But we we leave the horses at this facility because we're broke down. They were fixing a trailer. We come back out the next morning, and the place is flooded and no Oscar. His stall's wide open and there's no Oscar. And so, of course, we're like, oh my God, someone stole Oscar. No, Oscar comes walking around the corner because he could let himself out of any stall. That horse, he was so smart. He had let himself out, turned on the water, and flooded the whole place. He just comes walking around like, hey guys, I had a fun night.
Yeah.
And that was Oscar. He got loose. He got out at so many horse shows.
That little rebel.
He was, but he just would wander around.
One time we were up in the arena and like, the barn's on fire, the barn's on fire. And so we went flying down there, and Oscar had taken his blanket and he was twirling it in the stall, which was making all the dust bellow out through the barn. And here we all think the barn's on fire because he just did stuff like that.
He could twirl anything. Like he could twirl things forever. He just sit there and twirl. That's what he was just entertaining. But he made the whole barn like it was on fire.
Yeah.
He has good Oscar stories.
The horse version of Dennis the Menace. Okay.
It was.
So out of all of the super horses you've worked with, I mean, there's got to be some characteristics that makes a super horse. Is there any that comes to mind?
Well, those three all had one characteristic, was they had great expression in ears. Their ears, all three of those horses, when they do their job, their ears are pricked and they like their job. That's, I would say, for me, that's what sets those three apart, that they all three had.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
They moved, you could talk about
that incredible presence.
Yeah. So both of you are so accomplished on the world show level. I mean, this is the highest honor that a showman can achieve, is a world championship in AQHA. So tell us about how much the world show means to you. I mean, this year is the 50th anniversary. It's pretty special.
Well, it makes me feel kind of seasoned. I think my first world show was 1990. So this is my 34th. Is that right?
I think so.
34th World Show. For me, this is the epitome of horse showing. The World Championship is where the best of the best end up. And it's where I want to be on my A game. So my whole year is driven towards being the best I can be at the World Show and peaking there. So I have my memories of the World Show are, from my first one where I was so nervous and scared and just shaking uncontrollably, to finally working, once you've shown there, 40 times, it still gives me a little bit of nerves as I walk down that alleyway. That's the gateway to champions. I still get that little bit like, oh gosh. But the moment I walk in the arena and that gate opens, all my nerves go away, and I just go into my own little space. And I'm lucky to have horses that I get to just enjoy that moment with and show everyone what I got. So I love just the atmosphere there, and the obviously that globe that you can't get anywhere else. That's always like my goal, is to win the globe.
Yeah, for me, I think it's every young trainer's dream. It was my dream from the beginning to try to be a world champion. And I was lucky. I had great horses and I had great clients, and I had a lot of success at the world show. But it was by far my favorite show. It meant the most to me. Again, you spend all year trying to prepare, trying to peak for that one go. So yeah, I was fortunate. I won the first time I walked in the ring, and I won the last time I walked in the ring. So for me, it's what I consider my career is basically around the world show.
Wow, that's incredible. You can't get to the world show without good horses. So for my last question, what constitutes a good horse in your eyes?
Well, for me, when I'm a good show horse, needs to have a look. There needs to be some sort of a look, and a way of going that's pleasing to the eye. So that's movement. And then you have to have a horse that, whatever class you're doing, that horse excels in that and likes that event. So not every horse is going to excel at Western pleasure. Not every horse is going to excel at jumping, but I'm pretty sure every horse has an event that it can excel at, or something they can excel at. So it's sometimes our challenge or our job is to figure out which direction that horse wants to go. So that's what Jason and I always did. We would, if it didn't work here, we would try this or try that event on it. So for me, a show horse or a good horse is a horse that you find what its niche is and what it likes, and what you two as a team can build together.
Yeah, I think the key word is finding an event that a horse likes. And I think it's really easy to tell if a horse likes what job it's doing. And I think a good horse is a horse that has good presence, but is trainable and that likes its job.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It has just been an absolute pleasure getting to speak with world-renowned experts like yourselves. So thank you for spending time with us today.
Well, thank you for coming to the
Thanks,
ranch.
guys. We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. We love talking about our horses and the horses that have made us who we are.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the horses we discussed in this episode, visit aqha.com/goodhorses. There you can explore the pedigrees, performance achievements, breeding history, and much more. It's the perfect place to dig deeper and stay connected with the American quarter horse. Don't forget to subscribe for updates and follow AQHA on social media.